I'm Scott Al Miller. It's the 22nd of August, 2022. This is my vlog of daily life here in Nicaragua, and welcome to the show. Pull up a coffee. It's first thing in the morning, at least for me, and the show drops at 7 o'clock Central Time. So if you're watching this as it comes out, it is a perfect time to get a cup of coffee and join me for a little stroll through León, Nicaragua. I'm here in the barrio of La Barrio, where I live, more or less where I live, but I live in the barrio of La Barrio. We've got the Escuela over here, the Heart of Jesus, Corazón de Jesus, is here, and pulperias on all the corners around me, as is often the case. That is one. Just for reference, that is a pulperia on the corner there. I'm going to show a few more as we walk by, just because it's early morning. It's like 9 o'clock. I never get a chance to come out and film this early in the day. This is fantastic. I love it. This is what I like to do. I really wish I could do more morning filming or just more all-day filming, but I'm always struggling with work stuff. I do have a meeting coming up here in 30 minutes, so I'm very time constrained, but I wanted to get at least one video out today because, as you know, yesterday was very busy until very late at night, going past an idling truck here, and because we had Dominica's birthday party down on the beach, and so this morning I was back and trying to edit some of that more or less as quickly as possible so that I could get it up for you guys. That made for kind of a busy morning and kind of tired from last night. By the way, that is a pulperia on the corner there as well. So that's two, and then on the other side of the block is a third one. So it's a single block with three pulperias. So if you watched my video last week where I was talking about all the businesses that are just mixed into the street, it's worth noting just how many everyday businesses that you really want to use are actually located all over the place. Like, the things you need in everyday life are very, very accessible, and I love that. It's so nice. There is also a pharmacy back on that block, and I am passing another pharmacy right here, and there's a pharmacy across from the first pulperia that I came past. I'm just waiting for a motorcycle. And I'm just coming up to the church. I'm actually on the south side of the Iglesia La Barrio, so you don't normally see me walk down here, once in a while, but not as often, so that's where I am. I will slowly inch towards showing you where that is. I know how annoying it is when the camera whips around. So today, for the most part, is a work day. Worked pretty heavily all morning, got a bunch of video uploads going, really good stuff. The shows, I should say, are super busy this week, which is wonderful. I have so many videos going up throughout the week. It is absolutely crazy. I didn't really think about it when I was scheduling all the shows, but I have, like, every single one of my channels has something coming out in the next, either today or tomorrow, and it's a little bit overwhelming just to keep up with all the things I have to do when a new show drops, so that's a little bit nutty, but good, right? It shows all the traffic that's happening, and some of the channels are pretty new, so they don't have much going on. Anyway, so my big thing for the day is meeting up with new friends this afternoon, and I can't remember exactly what time we met, but sometime like at 3 or 4, I think, we went out. That is probably, I can probably work this out in my head, about 4 o'clock, I'm pretty sure, we went out and met at Pani Paz. They are new friends from the channel here, so hey guys, it was awesome going out and meeting them. We actually met at 4 o'clock and just did coffee at Pani Paz, and they were interested in exploring a little bit of food and stuff in town, so we then went out to Sua, Luisa's place, but not the one on the beach, the one here in León, so we were able to just walk to it, and got dinner. We actually ended up hanging out until 11 o'clock at night. Luckily, I was able to order dinner for the kids from Sua. They were interested in getting some food from there. And I should note, they really like the hummus from there. That's our favorite hummus in town. Not that there's a lot of hummus selection, but there is some, and they do the best. And they also really like the shrimp and mushroom croquettes. Both girls really liked that. Real quickly, this is a clothing, like a fashion store here on the corner, and then this is a doctor's office on this corner, and I think there's like 3 or 4 businesses that are less obvious that I missed pointing out to you guys just as we walk down that street, just because it's sometimes hard to notice them. I'm also going to point out the incredible, this is how they let you know that there's a hole in the street. This is a huge hole that could kill somebody, and there's some problem that it keeps reappearing. They fix it and then something goes wrong, so they started putting trees on it to make sure no one steps into it or drives into it. A little bit makeshift, but it does the trick. As far as I know, no one has fallen into it yet. But so we had a really good time hanging out. It was a lot of fun. And again, another pulperia that I'm coming past, and this is a dentist office right over here. It was a really good time, and they're very seriously looking at moving to Nicaragua, as many people who watch this channel are. It just kind of has become a community of people who are taking Nicaragua seriously, and they're also looking at investing and all the things that go with, of course, moving to Nicaragua. What town do they want to live in? What do they want to rent? Do they want to own a house? What kind of house? Do they want to own a business? Do they want to look at residency? There's just all those things. Everyone has those questions because, I mean, it's obvious, right? Moving to a new country is such a big thing, and there's so many unknowns and variables that you have to think about, and they're the same as everyone else, right? So they've been here and are looking at what those options are and what makes sense for them, and what their time frame and all that stuff is. So we had a really great time hanging out, and hopefully I was able to provide some good guidance and advice, because it is very complicated and there's just so much you need to know. Which brings me to an important question so I'm actually meeting multiple people this week, although I think the others that I'm meeting are people who have family ties to Nicaragua, and so it's a very different thing. They're just, here as long-term residents already, or as citizens or whatever, that just aren't here full-time necessarily. But more and more it comes up, both that people are looking for some amount of guidance or information from me, or that they're in a position where they really need some advice or resources, right? Like, oh, we spoke to this person. Does this sound like a good deal on a home? Is this a true legal path to residency? Because everyone is going to tell you it is when they're trying to sell you something, and then later when you didn't do your due diligence, they're going to say it's not their problem. You're on the hook for not having gotten your residency lawyer to sign off on your plans. Obviously, anyone who isn't your lawyer is not representing you. They may give you good advice, they may give you bad advice, but they're not legally responsible for answering to you unless they are your lawyer. So that's an important thing to know, right? Anybody who's talking about your residency, including me, right? I'm not getting paid to give you bad advice, but I'm also not a lawyer, so I can tell you what I've been told. I can tell you what people I know have experienced, and I have an incentive to at least give you good advice, because that's why people bother watching the channel. But my most important advice is you've got to have a tramite, a immigration lawyer who knows those steps inside and out, is working with you for your goals for immigration, because everyone's just unique, right? While there's a couple paths we talk about all the time. Buenos dias. It's another clothing store right there. While those things exist, there's only a couple that are really major, so we talk about those all the time, but there can be special cases for you depending on what country you're coming from, how long you want to stay, what your investment options are, what your familial connections are, all those things. Like, you just need to consider an awful lot of things, and you don't want to miss out on opportunities because you only came to someone like me who just doesn't know. Hop over here. For some reason my screen looks very fuzzy. I'm going to take a second and investigate. Okay, for those wondering about my camera, I have suddenly, and this just appeared, I walked all this way and it, boom, hit. All of a sudden, there is now a lot of humidity has gotten into the forward-facing screen. So it's not affecting the lens, it's not affecting the rear-facing screen, it's just my reference selfie screen that I look at, and it's just the middle of it has like about the size of the end of my pinky, but it's a small screen, so it's a good percentage of it, a huge spot that is clearly humidity that has gotten underneath that lens. Now, this is a waterproof camera, but it is not in a waterproof housing. It's in the media kit housing, so theoretically, humidity could enter the camera in a way that it can't under other circumstances. But I've used this camera under a lot of conditions. I mean, you guys have been watching the show. This is coming up on 2 years with this camera. Well, about a year and a half, because I had the Hero 9. It was stolen, and then I had to replace it. So this is my second one. But I've had this for a long time. You guys have seen how many shows I've done. You've seen me get caught in the rain. You've seen me go out on long walks. I've used it underwater. I've done a lot of things with this camera, never had any problem at all, and all of a sudden there's humidity under the screen. Now, of course, I'm not complaining if there's a minor thing, and certainly a little bit of humidity under the screen is not going to cause any problems because it's just myself. Like, I only use this for composition. I don't use it for like any kind of real reference, so there's no concern. And as I'm talking, it seems to have cleared up. I don't know how there could be this huge bit of like steam on the inside of that and then just go away. Weird, really weird. But so that's what happened. And later, when something's wrong with the camera, I can come back and watch this episode and be like, what the heck was going on? Oh yeah, that's when it happened, and that's why. Anyway, so all this information, you got to have a lawyer, you got to have all these things, you need to have these resources, and there's for immigration or expatting, mostly expatting, we've talked about that, there's almost never immigration options, but anything dealing with immigration, the department, right, Migración, is the department that handles you, whether you are an expat, an immigrant, or even a tourist. All that's handled by Migración. So someone who knows how to deal with that, knows what the legalities are. There's some simple things that you may need resources for, like, well, I've been here for 90 days. All I want is to stay another 30 days. How do I do that? Who do I talk to? Where do I go? Right? And yes, in that particular case, you could come to me and I could be like, oh yeah, just grab a taxi, go here, and I'll tell you what to do. But for your specific case or any questions and things may change over time, right? I can tell you that now, but in a year, maybe I'm not the right resource for that because I may not be doing that process at that time. So it's important to have an immigration attorney that you can talk to and just ask those questions. And it can be that simple. I just have some quick questions about my situation and what I need to do, and they can fix those things. So it brings up the question that I have, and this is, I'd really like feedback from you guys, because I get a lot of people saying, boy, I'd really like to hire me to help with something, or wondering how, and I'm happy to go to lunch or dinner or get coffee with you guys when you're in town and sit down and literally buy me a coffee and I'll talk about our experiences and give advice and look over prices of a house or a business deal or whatever. I don't mind doing that. That's cool. And it's a lot of fun, and it's something that I do, right? Because I'm a business consultant by trade. So that's, it's very much in my wheelhouse, and I'm a world traveler. I've lived in a lot of places, so I think I do actually have a bit of useful insight both here and abroad, which is kind of how I ended up here, because Alan, who lives here, kind of asked me to be a relocation consultant for him 5-6 years ago, and that's how he ended up here. And it's also kind of what got me here again, because I literally came down for 2 weeks with him and his wife and my best friend Rachel, and we came down and did a relocation tour, whole organized thing to show him what life could be like, what his options are, prices, and all that stuff. And he fell in love with the country and moved. And so that's kind of what got us back, because I was down here going, wow, I miss it so much. I've investigated so many more options. This is something that we really need to look at for ourselves, and we did, and made the decision to return permanently. And that was kind of always the thing, right? We always knew we wanted to live somewhere. We always knew Nicaragua was one of the options, and that trip was really what kind of, that combined with all the COVID stuff, really pushed us over the edge from, we know we want to find somewhere, to we want to find it now, and Nicaragua is the place that we want that to be, right? We kind of made the decisions happen, but decisions that were similar were always in the works. I'm about to cross the bridge over the Rio Escondido here in the south. Somebody was asking a couple times on one of the episodes where the pig is that showed up in one of the videos, and I'm looking for him. I think I see him. There's a baby pig, also known as a piglet, way over there under the tree. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but he's near the chickens. I think there's a dog over there. I can't really see. There's definitely a little piglet over there. I have no idea if you can see him. All right, that's enough of the piglets. So my question, after all that, is I know that I do not want to be a real estate agent, right? I can't tell you enough how inappropriate that would be for anyone to be a real estate agent. There's just no buyer's agent, right? Representing you looking for a home. There's just no way that a traditional agent where you're paid off of finding and selling you a house can be appropriate here, right? Even someone who intended, and I don't know that anyone intends to do this, but if there was someone who intended to do a good job as a real estate agent, assuming that such a person exists, because they could, in theory, just altruistic, it's such a difficult situation because you're paid to do a bad job, right? I've got videos on that. I don't want to dig into that now. It's just the financial aspect of being paid based on getting you to buy something and getting paid based on how much they get you to spend on it doesn't make sense, right? No matter what you're doing, you want a person who is knowledgeable and is incentivized to represent you. And the standard paths for doing that for real estate don't have people represent you. They actually are adversarial to you because they are paid only if they talk you into buying something, regardless of whether or not you need it. And they get paid more based on how much they convince you to spend. In the United States and Canada, there are very strict laws and monitoring mechanisms to make that more or less work so that people cannot reasonably act against your interest, even though they're financially incentivized to do so. Of course, they always do a little bit, but it's generally curtailed and at least kept to a expected level that we all understand. Here, that does not exist, and so those incentives are potentially many times larger, and the aspects that should keep them in check do not exist often at all. And so, and people don't realize that it's so different and that those things are really important. So there's no possibility that I would be willing to act in that way because it's a conflict of interest to exist as that role, right? And I think that's kind of a key. It is a conflict of interest, period. Anyone who's a professional in that role should immediately recuse themselves of representing you, which means they can't do their job because the only job they have to do is one of a conflict of interest. And so the first thing they should always do is say, I can't do this job. It's a conflict of interest. So that is out of the question, even though I think it would be fun. And my wife was a real estate agent in the United States temporarily. She was not good at it. Not her thing. She didn't want to go out and tell people about her job. But she's trained in it. I have a lot of experience in it. Rachel, that I just spoke, she is a real estate agent in the United States. Not anymore. Both my wife and Rachel were real estate agents in the United States, so they have that training and background. So we have a bit of real estate knowledge. I work in business. And so I'm trying to figure out how we can potentially have a mechanism, a offering for you guys so that there's some way that we can provide resources. And a lot of this stuff is very expensive for us, right? If this is like, oh, I'd really like to sit down and have a cup of coffee with you and you can tell me about some things, absolutely no problem. Don't worry about that. Like I love doing it, love meeting people, love getting everyone from the show to come out and say hi or whatever. That's fantastic. I'm talking about when there's more, like, oh, can you take us and look at houses? Can you organize some resources? Can you put together a team for this thing? There's a lot of things that it can't just be me, right? It has to be a team of people that I have, not a lot, 2, 3 people, right? But I need someone who can take you around in span, I cannot show you houses, right? It doesn't matter how much it is or isn't a conflict of interest. It doesn't matter how much I do or do not want to be a real estate agent. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. A key thing is any buyer's agent who's going to be identifiable as a buyer's agent, and trust me, I'm identifiable as anything, right? In Nicaragua, the moment I show up to look at a house, they know I'm representing a foreign buyer. The prices are going to go through the roof. Your options are going to go down. Some places will refuse to rent to you. Very few. Those that will always raise the price. You don't want that to happen. You want to avoid that scenario. So that alone, there has to be someone or some group of people who go out and scout houses, negotiate prices, take video of them, get all that established, presented to you. After negotiation, you can get a place, right? Like that type of thing. You need advisory on should you be renting, should you be buying, where should you be buying, what do you need to look at? Like there's just a lot of factors, and that's just that part. Then the residency stuff, then the business stuff that goes into the residency stuff. There's a whole package here of relocation, homes, businesses, and residency. All of those things kind of can go together. And I think part of the value of that is potentially having, and this is much more touristy than it is advisory, right? But potentially having tours that take either individuals or groups around the country and and show, like, here's what Leon looks like, here's what Granada looks like, here's what Huigalpa looks like, here's what Matagalpa looks like, right? Here are things you may not have considered: mountain living, barrio living, city center living, beach living. Let's look at all those things. Let's talk prices in the real world. Let's talk rental versus buying. Let's talk about how long it takes to get to the grocery store. Let's talk about safety or schools. Like, put together all that information for all over the country, at least here on the Pacific side, maybe not the Caribbean side. That's pretty far afield, and almost no one's looking at that, and you pretty much can rule it in or out ahead of time. But putting all that information together and having that as a package is something that would be incredibly fun, and I think incredibly valuable to people who are looking to do that. But what would that, in a reasonable way, look like to you guys? And how could we charge for that? Because the amount of resources it would take on our side is obviously quite a lot, depending, right? Well, what if we're staying in hotels? What if we have a tour bus that's a van that's to drive us around? We have to have a driver and a guide and a real estate person who's going to go look at houses. Like, there's a lot of pieces there that potentially have a bit of money tied up just in the taking you around kind of thing. So I don't know if it's even feasible. Right, and obviously it can be done as a one-off if you're really interested and you're like, I got $10,000 and I want you to do this for a month and put together all these resources and yes, let me know, I guess. But under reasonable circumstances, no one wants to spend that kind of money to find out about moving to Nicaragua, and I don't know how to make that an affordable and valuable resource where we have all those pieces. But we kind of have all those pieces because we do it for ourselves, because we're business people here, and we've been doing this now for a while, and we know so many people have been doing it. I feel like there's a potential for something, and I just can't quite put my finger on how best to package it. And it did occur to me this morning as well that having in-place seminars, that sounds weird, not like a sales seminar, not like I've got a timeshare and you should come see my pitch on, not like that. So I in my business and technology consultancy life, I am a conference speaker. I've spoken at Microsoft conferences, at Spice World, at MangoCon, at I can't even think, but several others. I've done small ones, giant national, international ones where they fly you in and there's tens of thousands of people, and ones where there's just 30 people in a room. But it's very much an advisory thing, right? There's no sales pitch. There's nothing to buy. It's purely you're here to learn and ask questions. And that kind of thing, maybe that makes sense, right? Oh, we'll have a bunch of people come in for, a 3-day conference, and we sit in a hotel in, one of several different cities, and, we get 30 people at a shot so that everybody sits around, has coffee, we have food brought in, kind of pay for all that together, and we have a group of speakers who talk about housing and immigration and businesses and answer questions in real time, right? Because the group is small enough, maybe that makes sense, right? But how much would that cost? I don't know. All those, it would be neat. It could be fun. It could be valuable, but we'd have to organize a lot of people all at the same time. That would be difficult. But if a bunch of people wanted to organize flying into Liberia and we were going to organize shuttles to get them somewhere, that's very doable, right? And it could be, well, a group wants to look at San Juan del Sur, so we're going to do one there. Another group wants to look at Granada, so we do one there. I don't know, right? So I'm just throwing out ideas. What I really am looking for is I'd love to hear some feedback from all of y'all. What is that something that people are interested in? I know 2 or 3 people have said that they are, but is it actually something that people would be interested in? And keep in mind that I'm only willing to discuss it if it falls into a realm of not a conflict of interest. I don't want to be incentivized where we're selling something. If we do it, it needs to be purely a service where we're representing you and providing a package of service professionals, lawyers, accountants, immigration attorneys, real estate consultants, I don't know, shoppers, those kinds of things, and put that together. Lifestyle consultants, I guess, right? Because a lot of this is, does renting make sense for you? Does buying make sense for you? You have to have a real estate person or whatever, not an agent, but a person who's advising you in real estate who can help you know, don't buy, right? The most important thing is the people who tell you what not to do, all right? And that's the problem with all the normal mechanisms. They're only paid if they only make money if you do it, right? Oh, you want to invest? Invest with me. Give me lots of money. That's how I make my money. You don't have to pay me, but I get all the money from your project. As a real estate agent, oh, you don't have to pay me as a real estate agent, but I'm going to make a giant percentage off of the sale that I talk you into. And when you say, should I be buying? Well, of course, you're only going to pay me tens of thousands of dollars if you buy. So, of course, I'm going to say you need to buy because it's the only way I feed my family, right? So those kinds of things, not willing to do. It needs to be a, here's a set fee or whatever, and it's for advice. It's, let's go look at houses, let's go look at rentals, and let's talk about how this is going to affect you in real life. Could you, well, what if I don't like this house? Can I rent it on Airbnb? Okay, let's do that research. Could I sell it again? Okay, let's do that research. Is the market expected to go up or down? Let's do that research, right? You need the naysayers in every aspect to say, you don't necessarily want to look at residency, right? Maybe you just want to be a tourist, and here's why. And that's going to be really easy, and you don't need to have a lawyer for a bunch of this stuff. Maybe a little bit, but not a lot, because you're going to do this in a simpler way. But if we're only selling legal services, of course, we can't do that, right? Because it'll be like, well, we only get paid if you go through the residency process. So it's got to meet those requirements of, it has to be a business model where there's a valuable service to you guys. There's enough revenue to make it financially viable, because I got to, pitch it past business partners to even allow anyone to put in the time to do it. And it has to be aligned. It has to be that when we do a good job, you are successful. And when we do a bad job, we fail together, right? It needs to be a partnership with our customers, not an adversarial relationship where we're making money based on misleading you or based on convincing you to do something. That can't be. It really needs to be a purely advisory role. And I speak about this quite a lot. Sorry, I have to head back. I have 4 minutes to get to a meeting, and this kind of stuff I say in IT all the time. Don't hire people where they are paid to work against you. Only hire people that are paid to work for you. And maybe it doesn't make sense, and it's not an option. Wow, it's loud. Like and subscribe. I want to see lots of comments on this, and I will see all of you tomorrow.